down to discuss is Josh Stein. He's the Attorney General in North Carolina, which is the center of this dispute. So you're in charge of elections in North Carolina. Can you give us some examples of how, if the court ultimately rules in favor of letting Republican legislators, let's say hypothetically, but state legislators take over, elections in North Carolina could change? Like, what's the real risk here? What's the worst case scenario?
Far and away, the biggest issue for North Carolina has to do with how we redistrict every decade. The way our democracy is supposed to work is people are supposed to choose their representatives, not the other way around. But what our Republican legislative leaders have done is abuse the redistricting process to try to cement themselves into power, no matter the will of the voters. And that is the gravest part of this case, because, for instance, just in the last decade,
right,
we had 13 congresspeople. They drew a map that had 10 Republicans and only 3 Democrats. The court struck that down as partisan gerrymander, ordered new maps, and under these new maps and these elections that just happened a few weeks ago, a 50-50 state, which North Carolina is, we elected 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans. So the people's voice was heard. The people spoke, and not the politicians.
And this would loop state Supreme Courts out of being able to do that. For instance, it happened in New York on the other side, where a Democratic legislature put together a gerrymandered, very greedy gerrymandered district, and the court there said no way, and they got rid of that. So I mean, it doesn't matter the party. You're saying the court needs to be able to overrule the legislative branch.
Correct. We learned in civics class, we have checks and balances in our government. We have 3 branches of government. And what the state legislators in North Carolina are asking the Supreme Court to do is truly radical. They're saying that even though they're a creature of our state constitution, they are not subject to it, that they exist somehow above and apart and can pass whatever redistricting they want, even in violation of the will of the people as expressed in our Constitution and as interpreted by our state Supreme Court.
So the case does appear, and maybe you disagree with this interpretation, but it does seem as though in this conservative court there are at least 4 votes in favor of what you describe as a radical interpretation, an unconstitutional interpretation, as Governor Cooper says. And it does seem to hinge on Justice Amy Coney Barrett and how she's gonna vote. Here is one of Justice Barrett's questions towards the petitioner. Take a listen.
I was just going to ask, is your formalistic test just a way of trying to deal with our precedent, or are you rooting that in the Constitution itself? Because you do have a problem with explaining why these procedural limitations are okay, but substantive limitations are not.
Okay, so first of all, translate that for us, because I don't speak legalese. And second of all, where do you think she's leaning?
I can't prognosticate. I'm just not a tea leaf reader. And I don't think that they're necessarily 4 solidly in the camp to uphold the North Carolina legislature's position. I heard 3 justices. I think there are others who are in play. But what she's getting at is there is no constitutional grounding for the theory that these folks are espousing. And so he's trying to draw, the state was trying to draw, the legislators, were trying to draw a line that said there's a difference between substantive restrictions on election rules and procedural ones. And that's just a distinction without any difference.
And so you think that probably Alito and Thomas and Gorsuch are ready to go along with the North Carolina legislature?
I'm really bad at this, but that's my guess.
That's your guess. And you think that Roberts and Kavanaugh and Barrett might be in the middle right now.
Searching.
And then Sotomayor and Kagan are against it, right?
Yeah.
Is that did I leave
Jackson.
It? And Jackson. Oh, right, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Roberts, some people are saying, and Jessica seemed to suggest, might be trying to find like some sort of middle ground on this, which he tried to do with the Dobbs decision and failed, did not get the other justices to go along with him, the conservative ones. What do you make of that? Is there a middle ground to be had here? I know you don't support one, but theoretically, what would one be?
I don't think there is one. In our democracy, who possesses political power? Is it the people or is it politicians? Because what the state legislature is asking is they should be able to control and write whatever districting map they want without any control or oversight by our state constitution as interpreted by our state Supreme Court. And that is radical. That's never really happened before. And for the Supreme Court to affirm what they are seeking, they're going to be overruling a state Supreme Court interpreting its own state constitution, which never happens.
And the Association of State Supreme Court justices weighed in on your side of this, opposing it, but not your specific state Supreme Court Chief Justice in North Carolina. He didn't join it.
Well, it came from the association. I don't know that he embraced the argument that was made by the association.
You don't know why?
Well, he was in the dissent on the state Supreme Court decision that said our state constitution proscribes partisan gerrymandering. Partisan gerrymandering offends our constitutions because our state constitution has words that are not in the federal constitution, like free elections and popular sovereignty, which means that all political power rests with the people and the people only, not the politicians in the General Assembly who are trying to draw lines to dictate the outcome of an election. The people should be choosing who represents them in Washington. The politicians in our General Assembly should not.
North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.